How did you get to New York City?
How did I get to New York City? In a 2014 black Prius. So yeah, I mean, if you literally, I got everything I owned into my Prius and drove here from California. Figuratively, there was a certain brutalness to New York. Like it kind of can I swear on here?
Of course.
It like kicks your ass. Like New York really beats you down. And there was something about like any triumph here feels like pure euphoria compared to anywhere else in the world. And that kind of called to me in a sense where I was like, man, I mean, not to quote Sinatra, but if you can make it, you can make it anywhere. There is kind of that idea of like really going somewhere as brutal as New York. The feelings of winning feel better than anywhere else I've been.
Yeah.
So I'd say that feeling of like really wanting to fight for I guess fight for what I believe in brought me here. And then also a 2014 Prius.
New York was always on your radar as a place you wanted to go to?
No, it was always on my radar, somewhere I was terrified of. Like I was kind of always it always felt so it felt like somewhere that was like I didn't really get it. I didn't really get what the appeal was, and that kind of made me terrified of it. Almost like, when you're like in elementary school and when you have like a crush on a girl, you like chase her. You know what I mean? Like, you know how it was like you always like when you're in elementary school and kids have crushed on each other, they're like mean to each other. They don't understand them.
Yeah.
That's kind of how New York felt for me, where it was just like, it was this thing I didn't understand, so I didn't really like it. But I was always a huge fan of all the art and people that came out of here. Yeah.
I know you're from Grand Rapids. How did you end up in California?
I ended up in California. My family moved to California when I was 15. We moved to LA when I was 15. We spent some time we moved like every 3 years growing up. So yeah. And then when I was 15, moved to California, LA. My dad wanted to take a shot at the entertainment industry. So kind of followed him around for his work my whole childhood.
We were talking before we started recording about his career. Was that post-pastor?
This was So I guess we were talking off mic, but my dad. I grew up as a pastor's kid. My parents owned a church, and then my dad wanted to basically take a stab at Hollywood. But he was still in he left the church in about 2019. So this was still a couple years out from that. So he was still going for the religious world.
The music was always a part of your life? Was that always there from the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. Music was always, I think since I was a kid, music, I'm trying to think when it really started, but I think I was probably like 6 or 7 when I first got really into kind of like the escapism of music. Like you put your headphones on, felt like you would go into a different world. But yeah, I remember like being on vacation as a kid and like sharing a room with my family and like seeing that my parents were asleep and like sneaking off and grabbing my headphones to like listen to music as a really little kid. So it was always a big part of escapism and 100%.
What were you a fan of? What were you listening to?
Dude, the first favorite song I had was Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash. Because I think when you're a kid, it's almost like that song's almost like a Dr. Seuss book or something with all the rhyming. You're like, this is so ridiculous. And then I was really into Parachutes by Coldplay was a big one. Michael Jackson was huge for me. So it's kind of a trifecta of like Johnny Cash, Michael Jackson, and Coldplay. And then when Graduation by Kanye came out, that was like I think that was the first CD I ever bought. And then it was just like, then I was just obsessed with Kanye. The first college dropout, late registration, and Graduation were like, that was kind of like all I had on my iPod shuffle. So
did you sense at one point that this was going to be a part of your life, that you were actually going to go for a career in music at some point? When did that happen? Yeah,
it's funny looking back because that was... It kind of came. It's weird. So I've had lots of different. I feel like it was like I would pick up something, and for 3 years, that's what I was going to do. Like as a teenager or as a kid into a teenage years, I picked something up, and like that's what I was going to do for a career. And so it's funny because I got really into Kanye, really into Eminem, really into like Lil Wayne, like the sort of peak 2000s rap, and I wanted to be a rapper. Like when
Really?
when I was like 8 or something, you know what I mean? Like I was like 8, and I remember I did like I think like my 3rd grade talent show. I did some rap, like, you know what I mean? I was really into that. And then I got into filmmaking, and then it was like, okay, I'm going to be a filmmaker. And then I got into skateboarding, and it was like, oh, I'm going to be a pro skater. And then when I was 15, I think was when I really, that's when I started really playing guitar and being like, okay, I want to like be in a band. I want to make music. And it's kind of haven't really been able to shake it since. So yeah, I think it is funny because 15 is when I really was like, I'm going to do music. That's like when I decided I was going to do music. But I look back when I was really little, I did want to be like the next Slim Shady out of West Michigan.
Did you have some talent?
Dude, who can say?
Debatable.
I don't think anyone's going to tell a 7-year-old he's bad at rapping. I also don't think there exists a good 7-year-old at rapping exists. Fair. So who knows? I have a scatter of rap songs floating around the internet that so, you know, maybe the jury can decide if they're any good.
That moment at 15, was that mostly because you just loved music and wanted to be a part of it, or could you tell you the guitar made sense to you, that you had some talent in that direction?
For sure, yeah, and I absolutely. It was much more out of necessity. Like I kind of had. It was like I had to play guitar. I had a pretty troubled upbringing, and a lot of terrible things happened in my early teens, and it was music and guitar was like this weird. I don't know if it was a way out, but it was a way to kind of like. It felt like my savior in a weird way. Like it actually felt very, very divine in a way that I like. Guitar was this thing I just gravitated to. I never left my hands. Like any free time I had, I would be playing. But it wasn't this thing where it was like, Preston, you have to sit down and practice for X amount of day. It was just like you couldn't take it out of my hands. There was some weird. It was like the first thing that really made sense in my life, and I just kind of gave everything I had to it. Because I picked it up a couple times. Like I picked the guitar up when I was like 13. And then it was too hard and put it down. And then I probably picked up a year later and would like, you know, every once a week or so, I would like learn a song on YouTube. But then when I was 15 was when it was like, all I did was play guitar and dream about being in bands and like study. And you know what I mean? That's when 15 was when it became very like, it's like eating or drinking or you know, breathing. It became like a necessary part to existing. Like, and I don't mean this in like a pretentious corny way, but there genuinely is like a if I don't play guitar, like if there's like a day or two goes by and I don't play guitar, I get like kind of shaky and irritable. It's a very like essential part to my being, which is cool. It's you know, it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Did you immediately begin some daily habits that you were pretty disciplined about, or did it just, you would pick it up whenever you had free time?
Yeah, it's weird. I never really had to force myself. Like it's never felt like I put more, like I call music the job that, and I've had times where I've lived off music. I've had success, but as of right now, when I call music the job that loses me money. It's like I work so hard at it, not because it's this thing that's like, it's just something that I have to do. It's like it's just as essential as anything. So there wasn't really any strict like, oh, I want to go hang out with my friends, but I need to do another hour of scales. Like it was never that. It was just like if I'm watching TV, I'm playing guitar. If I'm sitting in my room, I'm playing guitar. If I'm like, I think I'd probably at 15, 16, I would just like walk around the house playing. It was a thing that and I'm fortunate because there was never a question. I never had any like imposter syndrome or any ideas of like, am I a poser? Because it never felt like it was anything other than just, this is something I need to do, you know?
Did you form your first band when you were in high school?
Yeah, I formed my first band when I was 15. Yeah. So pretty soon it was like, as soon as I could strum a couple chords, it was like, all right, band. Like there was no kind of set. It was just like, that was all there was to it. Was like, well, if you can make at least somewhat tolerable noise, you should get in a room with people. Yeah. So that was, it was very quickly.
You're going through high school. At one point, did it click to you that you're really going to go for this, that this is going to be something that you may actually consider as a profession?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think what's interesting too with my age range is I'm 26, and it was kind of, so coming up in the, like kind of in in the beginning half of the 2010s, wanting to be in a band, wanting to do whatever, and then so it was almost interesting coming to age in an era when you literally saw all of the money get sucked out of music, and even the death of the band is like a viable what's the word as a it's just I'm blanking on it, but as like a viable logistics option, you know what I mean? When you saw the influence of streaming and the influence of bedroom studios, you kind of saw the idea of a rock band becoming obsolete.
Yeah.
So it was funny because I always kind of had that sense of like, well, I think any young man going through the trials of high school, you look at the so-called rock star or musician and you're like, no way, he makes lots of money, he gets adoration from like past teachers, from family members who he gets female attention, he gets creative, and you kind of look at the idea and you're like, wait, that's all a teenage boy wants. Like everything, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Like it is quite funny to look even more than, I mean, obviously actors and all of kinds of artists have those things, but for something, there is some sort of rock star ideal that appeals especially to teenage boys. You know what I mean? There's that kind of ideal where it seems like all your problems go away.
Yeah.
If you think of the biggest problems you have, where do I fit in the world? Insecurity, money issues, all of these things, having to get a job, all of these things, you're like, wait, I could check, I could kill 7 birds with one stone by becoming a musician. Exactly. So it was sort of like, I think I was also, I think any kid is going to be drawn to that, you know what I mean? But it was an interesting time to sort of, at the beginning of the 2010s, it was obviously still not a great time for bands, but you still had, the Black Keys, and you still had rock bands selling millions of records and living very, very luxurious lives. And then towards the end of the 2010s, it was kind of just like, why would you ever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the only way to make it was like as a producer or as a songwriter, as a beat maker. And it hasn't necessarily gotten better, but to answer your question, it was interesting to sort of watch this become like a genuine career option to like, oh, this isn't really like I over the course of that decade, you kind of, I feel like I watched it disappear as I got older and even got closer to what it is.
Yeah. You said you watched the economic viability of a band just disappear. The ability for musicians to make money. What did you see? What happened?
Well, I actually, to say what you said, I didn't, like the idea, like musicians can still make money. It's just, it really shifted. And it also, I think there's a couple of things that happened. Obviously you had the influx of streaming, which was a lot, which meant that, the majority of the money got sucked out because people weren't buying CDs. And then, weren't buying physical media. There's obviously a lot more things. And then you kind of had the rise of bedroom studios, to where it had, like, if you look at the 70s or 80s, it's like, or the 90s or in most other periods of music, obviously you had the solo songwriters and the producers and stuff, but the main way that you could make it, it's like nowadays you just punch your drums in on the computer. Back in the day, it's like you literally needed a drummer to play that beat. Now the whole idea of a drummer is like, you kind of really, all respect to my wonderful drummer and all the wonderful drummers I know, but it's sort of the idea where it's like, you don't actually, like, I had a friend who was like wanting to move to LA to be a session drummer. And I'm like, that's just not a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a thing anymore because why? Obviously, like, the last Billie Eilish record had live drums and they're all big pop records being made with live drums. But that was like the whole selling point for her record was like, we have live drums, which if that doesn't show how obsolete it is, that's like a selling point. It's just sort of the idea that it's like nowadays you can program everything. So the only really way to make money now is as a songwriter, because as like a playing, I'm looking at your computer right now. I could go download, Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter was made with splice loops. Those are just made with guitar loops. Those aren't live guitar playing. So if you think about it that way, that you can go on your computer and find bass loops, guitar loops, drum loops. You can find all of the elements of a song. The only money that comes out of it is now songwriting. You know what I mean? Singers and songwriters. And now even, I don't want to go down this boat too much, but even with the advancement of AI and stuff, it's like even singers are kind of becoming obsolete at some level, which is, and they never will. Singers will never become obsolete. But there is just, I think in the 2010s, you sort of watched, the idea of you used to need a band to now you really don't, and then I think people also, So obviously tons of great bands right now, tons of bands who make lots of money. It just became not the main it just became not the like, it's just like, oh, so I'm going to split my royalties 4 ways with a drummer and bass player, even though I can find all of that elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of just watched the main model of making music. And I'm obviously not necessarily the main model, but one of the prevailing models of like being in a band, whether that's a jazz band or a rock band or an indie band, kind of disappearing.
Yeah.
It just becoming like I said, it's like, why, if you can program the drums, why would you give your drummer 25% of your royalties, you know?
So you're seeing all this happen as you're going through, I assume, high school.
Yeah.
How does this change your thinking? What did you do?
It's sort of, I don't know. I think I still had that youthful stubbornness where I was like, no, we are going to be the one band. You know what I mean? We are going to be the one band. But I think it's still, school was always very hard for me. So that it's not even that I picked music as like, I'm not going to have a second option. There kind of isn't really school was never going to be a second option. Like me going to college was not in the books. You know what I mean? Like I barely graduated high school. There was really no other way. So it was kind of like, I'm just going to give everything I have to music and then I'll figure something else out. That was kind of always my plan, but I didn't choose not to go to college. I just literally, there's just no way I could have, you know, like there was no other boat in that sense.
Yeah.
And that's what I guess the thing with music too, is even watching it become a non-viable career option. It didn't like I said, this is something I have to do or do it. It's only been about getting enough money to make it to the next gig. That's kind of always been it for me. Like, obviously I had my, 14, 15, 16, I had my like, I'm going to be Eddie Van Halen and get every girl and live in a mansion. But once I kind of got out of that, like that teenage boy idealism, it was always like, well, if I can just get enough money to make the next gig, it's all that matters. That's kind of all. It's it's the same idea. It's like, if I can just go to work so I can get enough money to eat, that's kind of how music's always been. If I can just make enough money to keep doing it, that's kind of all that's. So to answer your question, watching that disappear obviously stirred something up in me, but it never deterred me because it was never like this is a smart career option. I'm going to, you know what I mean? It was never like, this is, do I want to make $200K a year as a banker or do I want to make this as, it was just like, okay, this is something I'm going to do. And either I'm going to work a second job while I do it, or I'm going to work this. And that's it. That's the kind of, I was fortunate to have my life path drawn out very early for me, where I was like, okay, I'm either going to work a job and play music or I'm just going to play music, but that's it. Kind of just had to figure out. And yeah, it is kind of this like love-hate thing where it's like music makes me tear my hair out, and then 2 days later and I'm like, okay, I'm like putting the clown makeup on. I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's get back in the ring.
What did you do to begin to try to make opportunities for yourself? So you graduate, you leave high school and you're going for it. What did you do?
So I worked so hard. So when I was in high school, I was playing in like 7-8 bands. Like I started touring at 16.
Wow.
And that was, I literally booked that first tour. Like we went from LA all the way to Seattle and back, like just from like, I booked it all myself. So it was kind of just the idea of like, I am going to beg people 6 years older than me to let me play in their bands. I'm going to book every show. I'm going to beg all my friends to come to every show. You know what I mean? It was kind of that thing where it was like, I was never good. I wasn't good at music until I was like 22. Like I've always been I was always terrible at actually playing, but I loved it so much and had so much drive that I would, like, my first real band, it was like I booked every show, and if I wasn't playing shows, I was going out to shows, just meeting people, so that like kind of just building a scene, building a following. It's kind of the thing where it's like my first band, I was lucky to be in a band with incredible musicians and we wrote really great songs. But what I did was I would go out, there was a great scene in Los Angeles, so I would go to every house show, I'd go to every show, I would kind of shake everyone's hand, I would meet everyone, basically just building a community so that when we did play, there were people there to see how good we were. Because I know so many artists who make incredible music, but it's like there's just no one to see it, and you kind of need that, socialness that makes people want to be around you. And then if you also have the great songs, that's kind of the perfect boat. So I think since the beginning, it was like, just meeting as many people as possible. Oh, hey, no one will put out our record, that's fine, we'll put it out ourselves. No one will take us on tour, that's fine, we'll book our own tour. It was kind of that I came up on punk music, so I did kind of like punk and emo, and I kind of came up on that boat of do it yourself, where it's like, no one will do this, fine, do it yourself. Just work a little extra harder than waiting for the okay, you know? So yeah, to answer your question, it was sort of just not really taking no for an answer. Sort of just like if the path wasn't laid out in front of you, lay it down yourself. It's kind of always been my mindset.
What worked? What helped to pay the bills?
What helped to pay the bills? So I've worked every job under the sun. Like I delivered Postmates. I played in church bands. I made coffee. I worked at juice bars. I did, you know what I mean? I did everything. So it was always kind of just, like I said, it was like, I'm either going to work a job and play music or I'm going to play just music. So it was, and then I kind of started, and then I started writing and producing and like and then writing enough that I had a song that did pretty well. So I had like I had some streaming income, and then I started touring with a much bigger artist, and then I had a day rate, and that was kind of like that compounded, and so yeah, it was all the kind of things of just basically working incredibly hard and also going out and meeting people and kind of building that network of like. Every opportunity I've gotten is from a friend being like, "Oh yeah," like it's funny. It's like talent is great. Talent is great, but I've never really believed in talent. You know what I mean? I always thought talent was a way that people who didn't do the work could make themselves feel better. Like they'd be like, "Oh, that person's so talented." You know what I'm saying? You hear it in their voice where it's like, "Oh, they were given the keys." And it's most of the most talented people I know are all bartend, and the people who actually, in quotations, made it are the ones who just worked really hard. You know what I mean? So there is kind of that thing with talent where I've always thought it was just an overrated. It's just, and you can hear in people's voice, you can hear in people's tone. Sometimes you're like, "Oh man, you're so talented," and you're like, "Oh, hey, thank you." Sometimes it's like, "Oh, I mean, he's just so talented," and it's like you can tell it's them making excuses for why it didn't happen to them. It's just basically saying they were given something, and and people are given charisma, people are given charm, people are given these sort of things, or like. I know people who were given great ears, you know what I mean? But if you don't work really hard, that doesn't really mean anything. But yeah, everyone I know who's gotten anything good, it's that kind of hard work meets opportunity, you know? You
were talking about how you had one song that did pretty well that began to generate some streaming income for you. I'd love to hear about what the economics of streaming looks like in the music world. Like how many downloads or views or listens do you need to make any kind of money?
Yeah, the answer is a lot. The answer is it's a lot darker than you think. It's it's like 0.003 of a cent for every stream. It's next to nothing. Yeah. So it's kind of the thing but this is where streaming gets somewhat interesting. So the song that I had that did well, it was just me and my friend just made it one night, put it out, caught the algorithm, but got millions and millions of streams. Wow. And it's the funny thing like I talk about the band model becoming obsolete. What's so interesting nowadays is in the past, it was like before the internet really took a hold, the way you would do it is you would write a bunch of songs and then a producer or and then a label, an A&R would see you at a show or hear you from word of mouth, and they would basically give you the green light, and they would cough up the money for you to make a record, and then you would make a record and the record label would put it out. That was kind of the only way that your music could get heard. You obviously had DIY labels and you had people funding it themselves, but like if you were funding it yourself, you had to cough up a huge recording cost and a huge manufacturing cost to even make the physical medium for people to listen to. So the idea of being in a band was sort of, that was the main way that you would even get heard. Like if you're just like some guy in your room playing acoustic guitar, how would an A&R ever find you? You had to get out with your band and play shows, and obviously you had all the solo artists, whatever. But the thing nowadays with streaming, you can put it up yourself. So the whole idea is like the people I know who make the most money in music are the ones who have 7 projects on Spotify. That is kind of the main, like most people, most bands, most big artists, the money from streaming and from touring pays for itself. You know what I mean? Like, and that's even the song I made that did well. It was like, probably about half of it I've used for like rent or going out to dinner or things like that. And the other half just goes right back into music. And the thing is, I know what it's fortunate, like back in the day, no one ever signed 7 record deals. You know what I mean? Like you didn't have some guy who like his band signed a record deal, and then his solo acoustic thing signed a record deal, and then his ambient film scores signed a record deal, and then his so-and-so signed a record deal. That wasn't really a thing. Nowadays, what I know is a lot of people who it's like, okay, so here's their like classic, here's they put their band's music up, and then they put their solo material, and then maybe them and their other friend have a project. So when you get 7 projects going, that's how and everyone is streaming. That's how you actually make, because then you have 7 7 sources of income, and especially 7 that maybe you're not even splitting it with anyone. Like my friend who I think probably it's tricky, but I think he's the one who makes the most. He put all of his music up himself on DistroKid. So he makes every cent. Because the issue nowadays is like I said, the old model of you have a band and you have a label and you have an agent and a manager. So it's like you have a band, you have, let's say 4 members. I mean, some bands were 6, but let's say you have 4. And then you have a label that takes a percentage and you have a manager that takes 20% before expenses. Those are a lot of pieces of the pie you're divvying up. You know what I mean? By the time everyone gets their cut, you're left with nothing. But nowadays, if you put it up under yourself with no one else, you're taking the whole pie. So let's say even with a bandmate, even if you're 4 bandmates, you take 25%, that 1,000 turns to 250 really quick. You know what I mean? Let alone the label taking whatever percentage they take, let alone your manager taking this, let alone paying off your producer. So that, let's say 1,000, that turns to like $70 really quick. But the issue is if you put it up, not the issue, but the good thing is that if you put it up yourself under DistroKid, that you're making that whole 100% of the money. And that's kind of the boat moving forward. I mean, that's kind of the smartest boat to be in, and that's kind of the luxury of nowadays is you can, like, I just kind of dump everything onto Spotify. Like I have my band that I put all my time and effort into. That kind of pays for itself, and then I basically just put all of my I do scores for editorials and commercials. I make solo music. I just put all of that out there, and you can just luckily put all of that, and none of it streams terribly well, but at least it's compound. You know what I mean? At least it's gaining, as opposed to it sitting on your laptop. It might as well sit on Spotify and have kind of those joint things. You know what I mean?
And that model, to your mind, is probably the wisest for most people who are trying to make a career and make a living in music?
100%. I think as an artist, that is the smartest boat, is like have multiple projects, have multiple, as opposed to putting all of your eggs in like a 10-song album that you put out every 2 to 3 years. Kind of just dump everything out there. The smartest model that I would say if you want to make a career being music is songwriting and producing. That's absolutely the way. Because if you think about it, you're, like I just said, as you're an artist, let's say you're one artist, you play in a band, you have a solo project, you have like an acoustic project, and you have one project with your friend. That's four medians of making revenue. But if you're a songwriter producer, you can have 300. You know what I mean? Like I have a buddy who bought like a huge house in the valley because he doesn't necessarily like he's never, I mean, maybe apologies if I mess this up. To my knowledge, he's never written like an espresso or like a White Iverson or some, I don't know why I thought of those, but some huge song. But he's written so many songs that have done well that they all add up.
They trickle in.
Exactly. Because like if you're a songwriter, let's say you do 5 days a week, you write a song a week for a year. Think about how many songs that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How many songs, and like, let's say none of them are a hit, but all of them get 100,000 streams. That's a lot of fucking streams. You know what I mean? So that is, I think, the most lucrative, and the people I know who make the most money in music are the songwriters and the producers, because you could, like I said, you can just cast a much wider net than if you're just an artist. Because if you're just your artist, you have your, like, as a songwriter, you could technically be 200 artists, you know? So that is, that's kind of the, and like I said, I don't know anything. This is my experience. I don't want any of this to be like an absolute truth, or I'm sure someone somewhere is like, well, actually, this is my experience. I'm just speaking from my experience.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
How do you think about your identity as a musician, a guitarist, songwriter?
Yeah.
What labels would you apply to yourself?
For sure. Good question. I think, produce. I actually nowadays I've kind of I love songwriter. I love. It's like, I mean, sure, guitarist, singer, songwriter, producer. You could add them on, but for me, it's just like that's what my favorite. The feeling of writing a song is, that's it. That's all it comes down to for me. It's like that's the one thing that I truly love doing, and honoring that is very, very special to me. And this year, my New Year's resolution was to play solo. So kind of just go out with just an acoustic guitar and play shows. And I've probably played like 5 or 6 solo shows. And that's been a really validating experience. Kind of have always playing in bands and always working with other people and writing with other artists and whatnot. It's very validating just to go out there with just you and an acoustic. And if you can make it work, you can kind of boil everything down to the core. And if there's still something there, it feels so good because you can dress, you know what I mean? You can dress anything up, but if you can strip it all back, it's like, that's where the real, that's where it gets real good for me.
Those 5 acoustic opportunities, how did they come about? How did you make that happen?
I think the first one I booked, my buddy Nick, big shout out Nick, he books Pete's Candy Store.
Sure, yeah.
So he's the main booker there. So I just hit him up and I was like, hey, I want to book a show. And then I booked that. And then like a week or two later, my buddy, his friends own a bookstore called Clown Prison Books in Greenpoint, and they were going through some financial troubles. So we threw an acoustic show there just like to raise money. That one actually was one of the more important. I mean, I've played to 40,000 people at Citi Field. I've played open for the Smashing Pumpkins in Mexico City. I've played festivals all around the world. That was maybe the most meaningful show of my life because there was just something about like, I love my neighborhood, and I love, and I think obviously seeing kind of all of these, just how hard it is to make it as a mom and pop shop, or just as a, making it without not being a big corporation, being able to have your music have like a real small time hand-to-hand effect on a business in your neighborhood really meant the world to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something about like, I've done tons of fundraiser shows, but even those fundraiser shows, it's like, I kind of crossed my fingers the money even made it to the people we were fundraising for. You know what I mean? You don't know. And then even those was just, it was something about how direct it was. Like showing up to the actual bookstore with my acoustic guitar, playing songs, and the money literally got handed to the owner right there. Something about just that being that like intimate and that kind of connected really meant the world to me. And then the other ones have just been just kind of people hitting me up and and then it's just kind of been stuff of that nature. So it's been really exciting.
You talked a lot about how much you just had so much enthusiasm for the medium and for playing guitar.
Yeah.
And I think you said it wasn't until 22 that you felt like you got good.
Yeah.
How could you tell that, and what helped to get you to a point where you felt like you now had some skill?
Thank you very much.
The other, is a good question. I think what also happened is I always punched above my weight. I always threw myself into situations that I was way out of my league on. So whether or not I was actually bad at music, who could really say, but I was always underqualified. You know what I mean? Because I always believed that just like throw yourself in the deep end and figure it out. So I was always playing with people way better than me. I was always in rooms with people. Like I remember I was when I first started kind of because I was living in LA when I first kind of got into the songwriting and producing world. One of the first sessions I was in was, I forget his name, but it was like he played all the synths on Yeezus, and and then the other guy was Lady Gaga's guitar player. So and I was like, and they like handing me a guitar, like, you want to play something? And I was like, sure, you know what I mean? So I kind of threw myself into boats way bigger than myself. So I think 21. So I think to answer your question, when I felt like I got good at music was when a guitar especially. Was when it stopped being an obstacle I had to fight. And I think a lot of people, like, it became a tool that I kind of used, because I don't know what I could relate this to, but it was almost the idea of like, every time the guitar was something I kind of like, I know a lot of people like this, where they're like, it's like they pick up the guitar and they're like, okay, just give me the chords so I can write a song and then I'm done. And I know that feeling of like, you're kind of fighting against something. I had it with singing for a while, where I was kind of fighting against my voice, and then it kind of, you hit that boat where the voice becomes something that you get to use. Like a car, like when you're first driving a car, you're kind of like, oh man, I got to fight against this machine. And then you get to a point where like, okay, no, this car is going to be a tool to get me from A to B. And I think that when I was 21, 22 was when I kind of hit that point where I didn't feel limited by my guitar playing. Anything I wanted the guitar to provide me, it was able to provide it. It wasn't like, oh, if I could just play this, then I could write the song of my dreams. It was like, okay, now I can basically, the guitar is no longer something I'm fighting against. It's a tool that's being used to grant me, being a tool that's used to grant me what I want it to grant me.
Some mastery.
Yeah, exactly.
How many years? I know there's the famous adage of 10,000 hours to
For
master.
sure.
Like, how long did it take, do you think, to get to that point?
I tried to play guitar when I was 12, gave up because it was too hard. And at 13 was when I started playing guitar. And so I would say, about 8 to 9 years of like all the time but I know people who've been playing for a year or two, and they just learned just enough to write the songs they want to write, and they get up there, you know? And I know a lot of people who just kind of, the first time a mic was put in front of them, they like sang a memorable melody in key. So I know a lot of people who have sort of just, it comes to them, and I always had determination. I always had heart. I always had a deep caring, but whether or not the skills took a while to come, you know?
I'd love to talk about the moment you decided to move here.
Yeah,
you talked
for
about
sure.
the fear and the intimidation of New York.
Absolutely.
How did you know it was time to come here, and why?
Great question. So I was living in Los Angeles. I was doing the production game. I was doing the songwriting game. I was doing the kind of industry thing where it was like I was touring as a hired gun with artists. I was going into writing sessions. I was going into producing sessions. I was what I said maybe 15 minutes ago as like the most lucrative form of art. I was taking my stab at that, and I was fucking miserable. I just hated it. It was like, so like you walk into a room and it's someone and they're like, we should write a song like this. And they play you a song and then you kind of cheaply create it with a bunch of people. And the issue with a lot of the times with those rooms is it was like, you sort of, like I said, it's like the most lucrative way to make money in music is having songwriting credits on all these songs. But the issue is you're in a room with 4 songwriters. Everyone's trying to get credits on it. It's less about making the best song possible and making like, okay, as long as my chord change got on it, I get my 10%.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah.
It was really, it was killing me. I was just like, this is not why I got into this. I was miserable, and I was doing I had a band and it wasn't going anywhere. No one cared. And I got a call one day from an artist I used to tour with, and he calls me and he's like, hey, just had to kick my bass player out of my live band. We're going on tour with Blink-182. Do you want to fill in? I was like, yeah. Keep in mind, I started playing guitar because of Blink-182. That was like my all-time favorite band. I learned to play guitar because of them. I was like, yeah, sure, I could do, you know what I mean? Sure, I could do that. So basically, we did a couple headline shows, and then we had the Blink tour, and there was about a week and a half in between the last headline show and the Blink tour. And the Blink tour started at Citi Field in New York. So I had a week and a half off, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go hang out in New York for like a week and a half. And I came here and just fell in love with it. It was that trip because every other trip I came here, I would stay at my friend's house in Bushwick, and I would take the train to the city every day. And I was kind of just like, well, I can't afford to live in Manhattan, and I don't really like Bushwick. So I was just like, okay, New York's not for me. You know what I mean? I didn't have rich parents to pay my rent. I didn't have a job that could afford it. So I didn't want to live. I didn't really see the good parts of Brooklyn. I only saw like the dingy parts I didn't want to live in. So New York was kind of off the table. Came here for that week, and I saw Ridgewood and Greenpoint and Bed-Stuy and all of these beautiful neighborhoods that were affordable and had a great scene of community. And once that kind of flipped, where it was like, oh, I don't have to pay Manhattan rent and I can still have a good life. I think it was funny. The first time I saw Ridgewood, and I was like, wait. It's like quiet and nice, but you're that close to Manhattan and you pay this. I was like, oh my God, New York, kind of the whole idea of it being a viable living option made sense to me. And that was when I really fell in love with it. Like I said in the beginning, where it was kind of like everything is so hard, but it just felt so, I was the most alive I kind of felt in my life. Like it was the most in the game, in the ring, present I'd ever felt. It was just like, I was fighting for my life every day, and I was celebrating every night. And that's kind of how you're supposed to be. Like being alive is a miracle. And so much of life, you're kind of on autopilot. You feel like you're just drifting from day to day. And I feel like New York really, for me, visualized how you're supposed to live. You're supposed to every day wake up and fight for your place, and then every night you celebrate that you made it. And that's kind of how it felt for me. And it was like the most euphoric and the most accomplished I had really felt. And so I did that. But I still wasn't really, I still was like, oh, maybe one day. Did the Blink-182 tour, landed at LAX, walked out of LAX, and I remember being like, I'm getting back on the plane. Like I wanted to walk back in like as soon as I walked out, I literally was like, oh my God, let me back on the plane. Like I was like, I didn't even want to leave the airport. And I was like, so I called an Uber, got an Uber, and I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm just being dramatic. I just missed traveling. Got home, and then I'd been gone for a while. So I'd been touring with another artist before that. So I'd been out of LA for like 6 weeks. Texted all my best friends, like, let's meet at our local bar. I went to the bar, and I was like sitting at the bar, and I was looking around, and I was like, I gotta fucking go. I was just looking around at all the people, and I was like, dude, I gotta go. And so I went to the bathroom, texted every friend I had in New York said, hey, if you know of a room opening up, let me know. And within a month, I was gone. So it was pretty much like some people were like, well, how about you save up? Nope. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. It was very do or die. It was like, if I don't go to New York now, I'm never going to go. And yeah, I think from texting all my New York friends in the bathroom of that bar, if they had a place open, to leaving California with everything in my car was literally a month. It got to the point where I told everyone I was moving before I had a spot. So I was just like crossing my fingers, hoping I didn't like tail between my legs, have to come back and be like, New York didn't work. So yeah, it was pretty much just that idea of, I was like, man, I feel so alive here. I like need to live like this. This is how I'm supposed to live. And since moving here, so many of the despair and the existential problems I dealt with and all of it have disappeared. That feeling of like you're in the wrong place, which I always felt in California. It felt like I was like a polar bear in a desert. You know, like I always felt like I was in the wrong habitat. Moving here was when I was like, oh my God, this is how I'm supposed. I don't feel like I'm walking uphill anymore, which is ironic because the whole reason I love New York is because it's walking uphill. Yeah. Everything's so hard, but it truly felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, so it was like it felt like a homecoming of sorts.
I think a lot of people here feel exactly the way you just described.
Totally.
And I'd be curious to know if you think you just met people in New York who had that kind of matched your energy, like they were living a life of, you know, a degree of courage, but they were fighting, they were alive.
Yeah.
How do you make sense of the fact that you had such a strong pull?
Yeah, it's funny because luckily I'd been touring and playing New York and had so many friends, so I had it was a very easy transition. Yeah, like moving here was almost like I almost had just as many friends here as I did in LA. Like it didn't really feel like a move. I didn't really have to get acclimated at all. Like I had so many friends here, and I think that it's funny because once I felt that pulse, the more you look back through it, everyone since the dawn of time has talked about New York the same way I'm talking about it now. Yeah, you know what I mean? You have you have all these, you have people like, Sinatra to De Niro to all these legendary New York artists talking about how New York is this thing, you know what I mean? It's like a part of them, you know? And then, you have all these people from the I named some classic New York artists, but I think you also just have, New York's always there's always been people who have called there, like Patti Smith taking the bus here. I don't know other. Of course, I'm blanking.
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, Bob Dylan. Yes, of course, Bob Dylan. This whole idea of people just like it called to them, kind of the same way it called to me. Where it was like, I need to be here. You know, there's just some feeling in the air here that has been here since the dawn of time that I don't think anyone has ever expressed what it is. Why it's the greatest city in the world? It just kind of is. There's just something in here that you can't find anywhere else. That it just feels. Like this is actually an interesting New York story. My last girlfriend, her mom lived upstate, and I remember I was at her house for the weekend, and I remember I had a job that Monday in town. And I was like, I don't want to go to work. Like I was just like, I don't want to go to work. And as soon as I got back into New York, I was like, let's go to work. I was like, let's see what the day had. There was it was like that classic like lethargy. Like I don't want to work. And as soon as I got to New York, I was like, there was literally like an energy that pulsed through me when I entered into the city lines. That was like, dude, let's see what the day has. You know,
like it's kind of getting the best out of you.
Yeah, it is. It really lights you up in a way that's like I've never felt before. Yeah.
I think what you said about the neighborhoods is such a subtle but important comment on New York itself, because most people, myself included, who only came here when they were much younger, went to Times Square, Broadway shows, saw the tourist traps and the insane aspects of New York. And for most people, that is not an appealing way to live day to day.
No.
And I'd love to give you a little bit more time to talk about these other areas of New York, because I feel the same way about where we are right now.
100%.
That really unlocked this idea that like this actually could be an incredible lifestyle to live here. The pacing of it is way different than it would be in Times Square, but Times Square and Union Square and everywhere in Manhattan is 15 minutes away.
Exactly. And and my old man actually said this too the first time he came and visited me. Is he was like, he's like, my whole life I would go to Midtown. I didn't know you could have a life in Brooklyn. Like he was like, you can actually like have like an enjoyable life here. And that was kind of what I saw too. As I do think you see Times Square, you see Midtown, you see Madison Square Garden, you see Rockefeller Center, and it's like that is not, even if we could afford it, that's just a terrible way of life, you know? And I do think that, because I you know, I have friends' parents and older people who were like, yeah, in the 80s and 90s, a cab wouldn't even take you to Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn is a newer, it's always been a neighborhood and a residential area, but it's kind of, it being a cultural center is within the last 20 to 30 years. And I do think with that, there has been this like, oh man, it's quieter and, you know, not even cleaner, like cleaner, you know, cleaner, like spiritually and socially than like the packed inness of Manhattan. But there is all of these great, beautiful neighborhoods that all have their own characteristics to them, which I really love, is the idea that one block, like the amount of times I've been like, oh my God, this is so cool, why don't I hang out here? And then the next day I'm like, this is so cool, why don't I hang out here? Like, I almost keep adding to a list that I'm never going to track down, because you can literally have so much fun and so much incredible experiences on a 3-mile block. And the funny thing about it is that not 3-mile block, all of New York is 3 miles, on like a 3-block radius, and then that 4th block is also just as cool, you know? So you kind of, I feel like I keep finding, there's like certain periods of my life where it's like, I spend a lot more time sort of more down south, like either by like Flatbush or Dumbo or like Fort Greene, and then I spend a lot of time more in Ridgewood and Queens, or I spend a lot of time in the Lower East Side. It's like there's weird chapters of my life, and as soon as I get tired of one feeling, for some reason life leads me to another part. I don't know if you experience.
It's almost like there are 100 different cities in a city.
Yes, exactly. Like our work a 12-hour shift, and our walk for 3 miles, and I won't even feel tired because you're so stimulated by all the different accents and signs and languages and styles. You know what I mean? You can just walk even like where you live on the water, I could walk from there all the way to my house in Greenpoint, and the amount of things I see, it's like it doesn't feel like a 3-mile walk, you know? I want to hear your experience on that too, if you feel like.
I feel the same way. I mean, the whole world is here. I've never lived in a place that's anywhere close to as interesting
100%.
as this. And I think if you're into culture in general and people, there's no substitute for living around here.
No, there really isn't. Like, yeah, it is. And that, I mean, that's a blessing to curse, because it's all downhill. It's all downhill from here.
I'd love to hear about what your experience of the music world in New York has been since moving here. How is the scene? How would you assess it right now?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think especially now, it's a wonderful time to be from New York. There's so many bands coming out of it. I feel, as someone who spent as much time in LA as I did, LA was a city where speaking from my opinion, you always waiting to be told yes. LA, it's you're always waiting for this booking agent to come to your show, for this A&R to come to your show. Even actors are waiting for this person to green light your show. You're waiting for this person to cast you. LA just felt like a stoplight city. I was always waiting for the green light. And I moved to New York, and it felt much more grassroots and much more you just make it happen. There is kind of this idea where like the industry and the tastemakers and the almost the okayers have way less power here. Things feel way more grassroots to me than they did in any other city I've really been in. And I obviously can't speak on other cities too much, but the scene here is fantastic. It's very much like, I think just going out is more fun here and more enjoyable, so more people are willing to check out stuff they don't necessarily know. Like it's funny, in here you can be an unknown band and sell out shows. Like you don't, just because word of mouth actually is a thing here, people are always looking for stuff to do, and that breeds a certain creativity. Like you have bands like Geese who are literally in the mainstream playing SNL, dating pop stars, you know what I mean? You have like grassroots New York bands who are for the first time maybe since the 2000s, you really have grassroots band that have reached like the top. And then you also have, feels like every day there's a new band that is coming up that's getting some kind of recognition and I think another thing about New York that I really love is LA was very much, as soon as someone hands you the ladder, you pull it up after you. I really felt that as soon as someone gets a booking agent or gets signed, they just disappear. It's a weird thing in LA where you watch this person get a record deal and they literally start hanging out with an upper echelon. And New York's weird because you literally go to the bar and it's like Julian Casablancas from The Strokes is there, or you go, you know what I mean? You go to a house show and you see someone from like you see Matt Schultz from Cage the Elephant. Like you just kind of see these people who, at the playing field, it's really cool. Like people do, lots of underplays and lots of they really give back to New York. And LA always felt like the ladder was dragged out after you. Whereas New York, it's like once people make it, they don't go anywhere. They stay in the same scene, which is really, I saw Cameron Winter at a TVI show the other day paying cash to get in. He wasn't even on the list. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really beautiful thing to see these people. I just felt like LA, as soon as anyone had any kind of motion or excitement behind them, they were just like, oh, okay, I'm done with this community and this scene. I'm going to go hang out at the GQ Man of the Year party or something,
Yeah.
Whereas New York, it's people stay. People don't really go anywhere, which I think is really inspiring. And I think it's a testament to why such great art comes out of here because people never really leave. Like, I could name you 300, let's start with, I could name you 30 bands where New York is almost the fifth member. I can name you like 2 where LA is the fifth member. I feel like New York is so ingrained in the artistry here. And people really honor that, which is cool.
You mentioned Geese.
Sure.
Who are the great New York bands right now in your mind?
This is one of those things. It's funny because every time someone asks me this, I always blank out at it. It's like, and then I'm going to be walking home and be like, oh, this band. I mentioned Geese just because I think they did the unthinkable in this day and age where they somehow made uncompromising rock music that like made it to a pretty global scale. Maybe not numbers wise, but at least cultural relevance wise. It's like everyone knows. You know what I mean? They've played on SNL as like a rock, like a non-produced rock band is really impressive. I think they're great. If I just go down the list, I have my friends playing. There's a fantastic band called Old Star from Ridgewood that I'm a big fan of. There's a band called The Life from Greenpoint, Brooklyn area that I think is incredible. This is so bad because I know I'm going to wake up the next day and be like, oh, this, and this. There's a great band, Holidays in the United States from Bushwick. There is a great band called The Heaven from Brooklyn. There is, who else is on a big scale doing important things? My friends in Ben Stellar are fantastic. My friends in Gift are fantastic.
That's a good list.
Yeah, okay. It's that funny thing where it's like anytime there's certain questions that you just blank out on when someone asks you, and then it's like, and then for the I'll be in the shower 3 days now and be like, oh, I should have said them.
How about venues? Are there places you just keep going back to that you just love?
Absolutely. I think anything done by Babies is fantastic. So Nightclub 101 and Babies All Right, I think is a really incredible spot. It was just the year anniversary of Billy, the founder and owner's passing. So rest in peace, Billy. I know one of his last goals was to bring live music back to Manhattan because so much had been happening in Brooklyn. So he opened Nightclub 101 before he passed, and that's like my favorite venue. It's the best. There's such a beautiful scene there. It's one of the few venues I would literally go if there isn't a show and just hang out.
Where is it?
It's 101 Avenue A, so it's on Tompkins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's like my favorite. That's kind of the one spot where it's like anyone doing anything interesting is going to be there. You know what I mean? You had like Kim Gordon's doing an underplay there next. It's like a 100-person room, but Kim Gordon's playing there next week, or like MJ Lenderman played the opening, or I know Idols played there for like the Caught Stealing after party. It's one of those just important spots where you have bands who are way bigger playing there for the cultural relevance. You have they give anyone a shot to get. So 101's great. Obviously, Babies All Right is great. The Hancock is an incredible house venue in Bed-Stuy that my friends run. It's like a 9-bedroom mansion that was purchased by someone and handed over to my friends to run as like a nonprofit art organization. So that the Hancock is very special. I'm going there tomorrow. Where else do I like to play? Where do we end up playing? Market Hotel is great. They're owned by the same people as Trans Picos in Ridgewood, which is great. TVI in Ridgewood is a super cool spot. I met the owner the other day, super great guy. Victoria Bar in the East Village. They just started a like acoustic night that they've been doing. Connor Oberst played the first one. That's Victoria's run by a really cool group of people. Yeah, there's a lot of really great spots. I mean, it's hard. There aren't really DIY venues anymore. Ticket prices are outrageous for venues to keep their doors open.
Yep.
It's just hard for everyone. So anyone who is willing to make those sacrifices to do it, it's really special. Yeah.
I know you haven't been in New York that long, but do you get the sense that this is your place, that you'll be here the rest of your life potentially?
Yeah, for sure. And if not the East Coast, I will be in New York until I have to live in Jersey and commute to New York. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll be here until I have to live on a neighboring town, but I don't really, the West Coast is not home for me. I think I'll be here forever. Whether or not it's in the city, I will be somewhere that I can still commute here. Yeah. So, yeah.
I always love to close these conversations by asking artists how they think about the word success. And I'd love to put that to you about what that word means to you at this point in your career.
Man, that's a fantastic question. Thank you for that. Success, my idea of success has actually completely changed. Idea of success is that you can lay down at bed at night and know that you made what you are supposed to make. For me, success means that I didn't make something to appease anyone. I didn't make something to trend chase. I purely made an unfiltered version of what I'm supposed to make. Sort of the idea of you're always looking for the closest distance between emotion and art. And I think that the idea of success, because numbers, whatever it means, is you made something that you are genuinely proud of and that you feel like genuinely was supposed to be made. So that's kind of my whole idea of success is like, because I know some people's like, if I can have a job that supports it, and that's wonderful if that's their idea of success. But my idea of success is just knowing that I didn't try to please anyone. I didn't try to make something that I thought would catch on. I just purely made what I said what I wanted to say without any filter. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean I said something vulgar or outrageous. It just means I made something pure that, because I think if you build a house that sturdy, anything, you're golden. You know?
Something solid, something authentic. Solid.
Yeah, the numbers will come and go, the money will come and go, trends will come and go. If you make something that you purely believe in, that's success, because it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard because all you want as an artist to make something that people care about, and sometimes what people care about and the unfiltered version of what you want to say does not line up, and it's a crushing feeling. But the only thing worse is playing something you don't believe in, and I've spent a lot of time doing that. Yeah. So
I think that's sort of the ethos of an artist, frankly.
Yeah, 100%. And it's hard because there's bills to be paid, and there's, you know what I mean? There's like, you don't want to spend your whole life playing to no one, but the only thing worse is having people care about something you don't care about. Yeah. That's a fate worse than death. Yeah. It's happened to me. I've seen it happen to other people. It's, success, just making just being able to make exactly what you want to make.
This is great. Dude, thank you so much.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. That was so fun.
My pleasure.
Yeah.